I'd like to start by saying thank you for allowing me to take this, because as the liaison commissioner for the Women's Commission, what we discovered early on was that if women don't record and write history about women, guess what? It's not going to get done. So I think it's important that we have a written form of this. It all started when during Women's History Month, we decided that what we would do is ask the newspaper if they would write articles, allow us to write articles, and they would publish them at no charge during Women's History Month. And indeed, they said yes. So each year, sometimes it's a student, but many times it's members of the commission who will take a theme and will break it down, and each of us will write on a specific part of that theme. And it's maybe 4 years we're doing this now. And I've written articles 3 of those years. This year I'm going to take a step back and allow others to do it, but I have written 3 articles. So what you're going to see today is a combination of those 3 articles that I've written and have been published in the Lebanon Daily News. And at the end, there will be, the first article was written in 2005 that I had done. And I always like to go back. I know Bobby participates with the League of Women Voters, and they always do a nice march in the parades downtown, and they dress as suffragettes. So we do owe our sisters a debt of gratitude. And I always like to point out that the 19th Amendment to the Constitution gave women the right to vote in 1920. Now that number, I think, is very important for you to remember, 1920, because the first woman elected to a county-wide office in Lebanon County was only 16 years after women gained the right to vote. And her name was Sally McKinney Hartman, and she served as our Recorder of Deeds. She was there for 24 years and left office in 1967. But Judge Walter, I think, served in the Navy, and his dad was the postmaster, correcting me. And when he came back from the Navy, Dad says, well, what are you going to do now? I don't know. And so he went to be an attorney, and he had to do some work and learn things. So he did something in filing a deed or researching a deed or something of that nature. And it got rejected, and it came back. And his dad said, you will go into the courthouse, and you will learn how to do it. He took him in and introduced him to this McKinney, Sarah McKinney. And she worked with him. And they ended up being the best of friends. And she was never harsh with him. He said that she always taught her girls that they should be kind to and respect the attorneys that come in. And she did. So as hard of a Republican as she was, she didn't make it a party matter when it came to business. She took care of business and treated everybody honestly and fairly. Right now we also have a woman Recorder of Deeds. There was Flashlight in between, but Donna Lutz is now there and serving as Recorder of Deeds. But only 16 years after they gained the right to vote, we had a woman in office in Lebanon County. I think that's pretty amazing. The second woman elected to countywide office was Naomi Ko. And Naomi was elected as the Clerk of Orphans Court. I have to tell you that that office is no more. They decided to combine it in with the voluntary and the clerk there. But it used to be a separate elected office, and it's not anymore. Emma Hawk was her deputy, and eventually Emma became the Clerk of Orphans Court. And it was interesting to see a mentoring that took place among women, training them and teaching them, because it was the different ages. And so as one retired, another one ran for office. And this is not being partisan when I'm saying this, because what I'm going to talk about today is women of both parties. Because what I find so often is that women are so quick to jump on each other and just rip each other down and not support each other. And I think that that's really important, because if you look at the makeup of our House and Senate and Congress, we've got to do something to get more women elected, qualified women. And Edith Broombine was a woman who came after Emma Hawk. And again, in 1983, that office was abolished. We have women on school boards. The first of those was Jean Gahn in 1967. And she was elected to the Lebanon School Board, followed by Alma Wise on Cornwall, Lebanon, Fern Harmon on Northern Lebanon, and Eleanor Whitmire at Anvil Cleona. The district judge story in this county is pretty interesting. Initially, they were called justices of the peace, then district justices, and finally district judges. One of the neatest interviews I think I did was with Catherine Coyle, who was elected as a district justice. There were other women serving in that era, but they were appointed. Catherine had to go through an election process. Now, keeping in mind that we became friends afterwards, they did, and also the person ended up supporting me in my first bid for commissioner. But she went to the Democratic Party at that time and said, I want to run for district justice. And John Onspach was the chairman, and he laughed at her in her face and said, go home, lady, you have kids, you're a housewife. And she said, you know, basically, I'll show you. She was going to go, and she didn't. She stayed. So this woman had such tenacity, and she worked hard, and she campaigned door to door, and her kids worked with her, and they went door to door with her. And her husband was like a merchandiser for Hawk Brothers and things like that, so he had some good ideas about drawing together themes and you know, delivering a message. So he helped her pull that together based on what she wanted to say. And on election night, because they're in the city, it's a rather close quarters. So each of them took, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 precincts and went and meticulously wrote down the numbers that were posted outside the polling place. And they went back and they added them up and they re-added them. Now, the Coyle boys are pretty smart boys. If you know that they're both attorneys, and there was a couple other siblings, but I mean, we're talking some bright people here. And they came back and they were excited. They won the race by 7 votes. But the next day in the paper, it was reported that Catherine lost the race by 5 votes. They said, that can't be. And nobody wanted to listen to them. She said, I want to recount. I want to recount. So her husband could speak Pennsylvania Dutch. And if any of you remember John Onspach, he could speak Pennsylvania Dutch. And he talked to Mr. Riley, Diana's husband as well. And her husband went in with her, and he started talking Dutch to John Onspach and said, hey, give the lady a break, at least give her a recount. So they did. And guess what? She won by 7 votes. Well, now, if you can imagine, the Republican Party was really upset because here was a woman and a Democrat who just won the race of district justice. So the Republican Party filed an appeal, and they wanted another recount, which they did, and she still won by 7 votes. So the entire time that she was in office, she had a framed number 7 on the wall behind her desk. And I just loved that story. I just thought it was so Catherine. It was really great character. And so I enjoy sharing that story. Catherine is still living in the city of Lebanon. And so if you ever see her, please say, I heard your story about number 7. Of course, some of the other justices of the peace at the time were Lucy D'Annunzio, Mary Spamuth, Joanne Schultz, and they were grandfathered into the system. So they didn't have to necessarily run at the time because I guess originally it might have been an appointed office and then you had to become an elected office. And I should double check that, but that's my recollection. Since then we've had Hazel Swisher, Betty Ann Smith, Christine Heck, and more recently Maria Dissinger, all elected as district judges. So the women, once they get in and can prove themselves and do a swell job, they break the glass ceiling. They pave the way for other women to get into office. But it takes somebody to break through